Hello, my name's VOC. It's like 4:30 in the morning here where I live in Arizona, but I'm making this video in defense of Empyrian and Snap's group. I'm up late today because of all the drama on Reddit. I love the Reddit drama, like anybody else who plays Path of Exile. And I'm here today to say that I think GGG made the correct decision, but was far too harsh in the time that they decided to ban Empyrian and Snap and his group and the other people for using this extended ultimatum mechanic. The first thing that I thought of when I saw this extended ultimatum mechanic was the heists, where we figured out how you could, split and shuttle run heist blueprints, run back and forth all day long in repositories, and then go into repository blueprints and run back and forth and get a ton of experience and a ton of loot. And I mean, we made an entire league out of spending hours crafting perfect blueprints, splitting them hundreds of times to shuttle run them for maximum experience. And then, as if a league wasn't enough, GGG made it an event for Demigods. And I mean, I won a hardcore Demigod in that event, entirely shuttle running heists using that mechanic that probably wasn't intended in the original game design of heists, where you use heists and heist blueprints to run back and forth multiple times, generally repositories, to get tons of experience. And, when I saw people doing the ultimatum today, where they did ultimatums for 5 and 10 minutes a wave, I thought, this is pretty similar. You get a similar amount of loot to previous things we've seen in the game before with 5 delirium split maps and heists and heist blueprints with good crafts that have been split multiple times. And it doesn't happen with every heist, just like, it doesn't happen with every ultimatum, just like it doesn't happen with every heist. You have to hunt for it. It only worked on that one type of survival ultimatum. I mean, we built an entire league out of running heists in a way that they probably weren't intended, and then had an entire race for demigods where you didn't even need to ascend, you didn't even need to kill Kataba, you didn't need a map device, and you could get a level 100 character in hardcore and win a demigod in a hardcore race using that mechanic. And then it was changed by GGG. They deterministically decided, okay, this was probably not intended, and they changed it, or corrected it, or balanced it. But in this instance, they ban people for an entire month. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think Empyrian and Snap were banned today for a month because of what they did. I think they were banned today for a month by the mistakes of GGG during the launch of this league. GGG made 2 mistakes. The first mistake they made was with their databases, causing all of the problems at league launch. The second mistake they made was giving streamers priority queue, and Snap's whole group got priority streamer queue, or a lot of Snap's group, Snap and Empyrian and their players got streamer queue, and they got a lot of blowback for that. And Empyrian didn't necessarily respond wonderfully to that. He made some comparisons to Unfair Life and kids starving in Africa. I mean, it's not the way that I would respond if streaming was my job, but I understand his response. He was kind of memeing with it. And I think GGG ego was bruised both by the visibility of their mistake with the database, and second by the visibility of their mistake giving streamer priority queues, and thirdly, they paid a bunch of well-known streamers a lot of money to put on display the wonderful thing that is Path of Exile, and it didn't work out great for them. And I'm sorry that happened, but I feel that that is the stimulus that led GGG to react so harshly, given given these bans for the entire league to Snap and Empyrian and his group. And I feel it's unfair. I feel it's too harsh. And I don't play PoE for my job, but I've played PoE for 7 years, and I've never been banned. I play for fun, but I play on this ledge, this edge the bleeding edge of, finding the arcane and deep game mechanics of Path of Exile. I love that knowledge is power in Path of Exile, and that there are hundreds of secrets, and that there's so much to know that no one person in Path of Exile will ever know everything about the game. That's what I love about it. And I've always felt secure on that ledge. I mean, there's definitely been things that I've known were exploitative that I've reported to Chris. I've reported on the bug forums that you clearly had to do something unusual and unintended. But what Empyrian and his group did today did not seem exploitative to me at all. It seemed like running heists, shuttle running them, which we did for 2 leagues. I mean, it seemed like they were just using the mechanics. The mechanic in Ultimatum has a timer. When you leave the circle, you have a grace period. You can leave and re-enter the circle. Multiple people can leave and re-enter the circle. I mean, it's very obvious in party play that if you have one guy out and one guy in, let's test and see what happens. That's just an obvious thing to test for party play. And Snap and Empyrian's group are consistently one of the best party and group players in the history of Path of Exile. They always are trying to find how they can excel as a party and play as a party. And it's hard to do that in Path of Exile. Path of Exile in recent years has not been very conducive to party play. And to see what Empyrian and Snap and Red and their team does in party play is always exciting, encouraging, impressive, and entertaining to me. And to see them get banned for the entire league for just trying to push those limits and learn what's possible with a new league mechanic seems incredibly excessively harsh. So I'm putting my voice, however small it is, out there to their support to ask Chris to reconsider their bans. And I'm sure Reddit will hate on me for this, but I'm living by my principles, and I just don't feel what was right is principled. I don't feel what was done is principled. I feel it sets a new precedent and a dangerous precedent. Again, I've lived securely on that slope of pushing the limits of what's possible in PoE for years. I mean, I was the 13th person in softcore to kill Katava. I played supporting Havoc when Havoc was pushing to his original 100 long ago. I was one of the first people to describe how you could meta mod items and wipe suffixes and wipe prefixes in Path of Exile. I've won a number of Demigods in hardcore and softcore races in Path of Exile. I have multiple 100 characters that I've played over the past 7 years, and I've played almost 2 years of my life spent in this game, in Rayclast. And all of that time, I'm constantly searching for new secrets, searching for new vendor recipes, remembering how to use old secrets to my advantage, learning new information. I don't have much build diversity. I always play a cursor or support, basically. But, I enjoy the bleeding edge of Path of Exile, and I live on this bleeding edge with hundreds of wonderful friends in this wonderful community that we've had for 7 years. And now, with this new precedent, I feel like Chris has just dumped tons of barrels of oil down this edge that I live on, making this an extremely slippery slope and gray area. Because there have been hundreds of clever use of game mechanics that have never resulted in bans like this in the past. I mean, all you have to do is go look at Plague Band Prismatic Ring or Torment Paw Slink Gloves crafted by Mysidair in the first week of Harvest. I mean, items like that vastly impacted the long-term economy of Path of Exile than anything that was done this league. There's tons of other examples. I used Heist as an example. I used Harvest as an example. But there's tons of others, things that GGG overlooked and people gained an advantage from. What we did with the Winged Scarabs last league, using the imprints of Watchstones. Okay, an imprint is something that's in the game. A Watchstone is something that's in the game. You can put a Sexton on it. A Sexton is an enchant. Imprinting restores enchants on every other item, so an imprint restored the Winged Scarab 16-use Sexton, and we made I mean, we made thousands of winged scarabs. I participated in that. Empyrian's group participated in that. There was uh, no one sent me a message saying I was doing anything wrong. No one banned anybody for doing that. People had produced thousands upon thousands of winged scarabs, which were worth many, many mirrors of wealth. Uh, through imprinting scarabs. And GGG, even when GGG changed it, they didn't reverse the imprints. Those imprints of the winged scarab sextants worked after the patch. In other words, GGG allowed the players who had used the imprints to imprint the scarabs to continue to use those scarabs to this day. To this day in standard, people are using those scarabs to imprint the 16 uses of winged scarab finding back onto the sextant to find, another 16 times 3 winged scarabs. Uh, and no one, to my knowledge, was punished for that. And that had far more impact on the economy. I mean, I made 2 mirrors in the first few days, and everybody that farmed the wing scarabs with me each made a mirror. Impy's group made tons of mirrors, and no one was chastised for that or sanctioned for that, much less banned. And 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 retroactively, it was allowed to exist in the economy. I mean, this precedent is vastly different than how GGG has reacted and acted and sanctioned players for the past 7 years. Now, the only positive thing I see in all of this is that GGG is starting to use short-term bans instead of perma-bans to help influence community behavior. And do I think this type of behavior, including behavior that I've engaged in, sometimes deserves a 24-hour or 48-hour ban and maybe a deletion of some of the items that were incorrectly made? Sure. I think that would be a much more appropriate response to guide player behavior and to encourage players to report things that seem overpowered, seem like they might have not been intended, but are not exploitative. What Empyrian and his group did today was not exploitative. They didn't hack the game. They didn't alter the game. They weren't using a third-party program. They weren't using some like guild stash dupe bullshit that happened a whole bunch this league as well. They were just using mechanics in the game as the mechanics were designed, just in a way that the developer did not foresee or anticipate. That type of clever use of game mechanics should not be the basis for an entire league ban, even if it's streamers who are streaming it for money. Uh, no matter who it is, that shouldn't be the basis for a ban for an entire league. It's too harsh. Chris, you've acted too harshly here. And Chris, I think you need to reconsider the decision that you've made, and I think you need to reconsider how you act on this type of precedent going forward. I think the precedent that you've established over the past 7 years has worked effectively, and I think you can use short-term bans, 24-hour, 48-hour, and 1-week bans to encourage and guide player behavior much better than these types of incredibly harsh bans. Uh, Thanks. This is VOC at 5 o'clock in the morning, signing off. That's my 2 cents. Bye.